If we don't have people from every walk of life building the products that we use every single day, we will never build products for people from every single walk of life. If we don't have people from every single walk of life collaborating on the creation of our world, we will never have a world for everyone from every walk of life. And we certainly won't have a future worth building. A future worth building is equitable. It's clean, green, and sustainable. It's based on values that translate into action and impact. It's diverse and inclusive, and a place of belonging where every single individual has the opportunity to thrive and to prosper and fulfill their dreams. This includes women and girls from every single walk of life, now and for many generations to come. Women of every age, stage, color, creed, sexual orientation, culture, and background. And the women that are going to be joining me on this stage today are role models and leaders who are creating this future. They are conquering challenges, seizing new opportunities, and building a triple bottom line, not simply a commercial one that will benefit and grow the type of economy, society, and environment that we all strive for. One that embraces equities, and they are women in tech, and they are conquering statistics such as the following. Today, the challenges we face include only 5% women of CEOs, 7.4% of chairs, and 26% of board seats of TSX-listed companies in this country are held by women. Over the last 5 years, solely women-founded companies have never exceeded 2.8% of the investment allocated to venture-backed firms on this planet. And between entry-level positions and the C-suite, representation of women in color drops by 75%. These statistics are completely unacceptable, and you just heard Dr. Augustine say that the UN believes it will take 300 years at this current rate of progress. We know we need to change that, and it will take action from all of us, including the role models that are on this stage that I hope and know will inspire you today to continue joining us in that fight. We will create a more competitive and economic world with greater diversity, equity, and inclusion. Women strive to ensure that we're achieving the UN sustainability goals in every single thing they undertake. They take action to drive change in their homes, in their business, and on our planet. And they are building a future that is worth waiting for, worth creating, one that will benefit not just all of us here, but will leave the world in a better condition, in a better state for many generations to come. Our first speaker who will do introductory remarks for the incredible panelists that will then join me is Susan Rohak, Managing Partner of the Climate Tech Fund at BDC. BDC Capital's Venture Thrive Fund generously came on board as the title sponsor of International Women's Week, a collaborative initiative for and with our community that Invest Ottawa is privileged to be a part of, where we strive together as a community to inspire, equip, and empower women leaders in every single walk of life. And certainly, Solange Touchine, founder and CEO of Elevate International, is a shining star and one of the greatest role models that we have in this community. I want to do a very special thank you to her for all of her leadership before we call Susan forward. Please join me in welcoming Susan to the stage.
Thank you, Elevate International, for inviting BDC to make some opening remarks before this next panel entitled Creating a Future Worth Building, Women Entrepreneurs and Leaders Achieving Economic, Social, and Environmental Impact. My name is Susan Rohak, and I'm the Managing Partner at BDC of the Climate Tech Fund. I was asked to answer the question what BDC is doing to create a future worth building. And I could take the rest of the day telling you some of the things that we're doing, but I'm going to focus instead on a couple of key initiatives around the subject that we're talking about today. And that, of course, is the economy, climate, and women, given that it's International Women's Day. BDC, for those of you who don't know, Business Development Bank of Canada, is a federal crown corporation whose sole purpose is supporting, via loans, equity, and advisory service, Canadian entrepreneurs. Small and medium-sized businesses in Canada make up nearly all, and when I say nearly all, I mean 98% of all businesses in Canada are SMEs. So SMEs in Canada are big business. They are a major driver of economic growth in Canada, employing over 10 million Canadians. Growing and supporting SMEs in both good and bad times is what we do at BDC, and that in turn fuels the Canadian economy. And for well over 50 years, BDC has played that important role in supporting SMEs. But we see our role as going beyond just financial support. How do we make SMEs in Canada better, stronger, more resilient? How do we ensure underserved entrepreneurs, like visible minorities, new immigrants, Indigenous people, and women have their fair shot at success? And I want to talk about a few specific initiatives we're doing at BDC to address just that, namely climate and women entrepreneurs. In 2017, BDC launched a $600 million clean tech fund, investing in Canadian clean tech companies that showed promising technology to Canada, to help Canada and the world decarbonize and get to our net zero goals. And now with the recent launch of our second $400 million fund, we have over $1 billion in assets supporting climate. That is the largest and most active investor in Canada for climate. But supporting climate change is a team sport. We work closely with all government agencies and crowns on this important mandate. And we also help drive in private sector money. For every dollar we've invested in a climate company, $6 of private money has come in at the same time or after us as well. Climate change is real, scientifically proving, and affects all of us. But did you know that globally, climate change is and will have a larger effect on women? Women who are marginalized, low income, or from developing countries have greater risk to their livelihood, their health, and their safety because of climate change. And let me assure you, they are not the ones that are putting that CO2 into the air. BDC will continue to do our part to not only support climate technology companies with important technologies like carbon capture, electrification, and energy storage, but we're also going to help Canadian SMEs measure and reduce their carbon footprint. And that brings me to what BDC is doing to also help Canadian women entrepreneurs. Women are massively underrepresented among both venture-backed entrepreneurs and VC investors. Some sad statistics, you might want to get out a Kleenex. Women entrepreneurs receive less than 3% of venture capital funding globally, and only 15% of venture capitalists are females. BDC wants to change that narrative. We have to change that narrative. And I want to highlight a few initiatives that we're doing to do just that. BDC launched the first Women in Tech Fund in 2017. At the time, it was one of the world's largest venture capital funds, $200 million, dedicated to invest in women-led technology companies, helping build a robust ecosystem to support women in tech today and in the future. The fund is unique in that it had a dual mandate to deliver a return on investment and making a lasting impact on the Canadian tech ecosystem. Building off the success of the Women in Tech Fund, in September 2022, BDC launched the new $500 million Thrive platform. It's designed to catalyze the country's diversity and foster economic prosperity by propelling women-led businesses of all sizes to accelerate their growth. This fresh capital is used to invest directly into promising women-led entrepreneurs building Canadian tech companies, but also indirectly to support women-led or co-led investment funds. Finally, I want to talk about the venture capital ecosystem in its entirety. Venture capital is a really important source of capital for startups and scaling companies. A robust venture capital sector allows countries to grow and prosper. One study showed that jobs in venture-backed companies grew 8 times faster than the private sector. BDC also plays a very important role in the venture capital ecosystem. We are Canada's most active limited partner investing and supporting fund managers. If you can think of a Canadian venture capital firm, chances are BDC is one of their limited partner, and we've helped fund them. And hence, we have the opportunity to influence this ecosystem given our strong involvement in funding them. I'm sure you've all heard what gets measured gets done. So in 2022, BDC launched a diversity and inclusion reporting tool, and just recently we launched an ESG reporting tool. These templates and reporting systems for Canadian venture capital and their portfolio companies bring transparency and standardization around ESG and diversity and inclusion, and it's the first step to change. Women entrepreneurs receiving less than 3% of venture capital funding globally is not acceptable. Let's measure, benchmark, and make change happen. So I hope that when you think of BDC, you think of us as not only as a bank for SMEs, but also a powerful platform for change, a staunch supporter of climate and women entrepreneurs, making SMEs in Canada better, stronger, and more resilient. And I now turn the stage over to the next panel, who I know will build on some of these important themes, and I can't wait to hear what they have to say. Thank you.
So I have had the privilege of collaborating with all of these leaders over the course of the last, I'm going to say 5 years. It's been an incredible journey. And I would love for each of you, because of course I could never do this justice, each of you introduce yourself, a little bit about your role and what it means to you to be creating a future worth building.
Thank you so much, Sonia. First of all, I'm so privileged and honored to be here on this panel and listening to all the fantastic speakers. My name is Dimple Thomas. I am an engineering manager at Ericsson and have the privilege to lead and build a gender diverse and gender balanced team of engineers and data scientists that look at AI and machine learning for network optimization of cloud-based telecommunication networks. I am also the DEI theme driver at Ericsson Ottawa. So it's a space that I'm also very privileged to be at. And I'm looking forward to hear the conversations that come here and what it means to be, to lead and to build this future for us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alita Burke, and I'm the co-founder and CFO at Grocer, and we enable communities to grow food locally. And I think for me, what it means to create a future worth building is I had never in my wildest dreams thought I would be an entrepreneur. And I think because looking back, you had those stereotypes on TV of what an entrepreneur was. You know, it was a old white man, you know, and laying down the law. And I was like, that is not me at all. But there's just so much promise and purpose that you can have. And it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made, and so hopefully there can be others that can join on a journey of entrepreneurship because there's so much impact that can be had there. And I look forward to this conversation.
Hello everybody, my name is Emma Todd. I am the CEO of MMH Technology Group. I'm also a member of the Crypto Sustainability Coalition for the World Economic Forum. I have quite a few titles. I'm past executive chairman for the Blockchain for Impact that worked with the United Nations, and I'm past chair for Girls in Tech. I really believe that doing the best that you can for the environment really just helps you as a whole. It helps the community as a whole. It helps future generations. And we'll get into that a little bit more, but all I have to say is the majority of people here are from Ottawa, and I used to live in Ottawa. I live in Toronto, and just coming here and not being able to skate on the canal was a really bad reality check for me. And I think you all can see this is what happens when you don't take care of the environment. The environment says, you're not taking care of me, I won't take care of you. So we'll talk about it a little bit more.
Hi, I'm Heather Clark. I'm the co-founder of Poseidon Ocean Systems. We are a clean technology engineering company. We provide technology to modern-day salmon farms. So I come from British Columbia, and I started the company with my husband. And we didn't initially set out to create a clean tech company. We started as providing consulting services and kind of project management services, and we evolved very quickly to developing our own technology because we found that there is a huge gap in the market. It's a big part of what we do as a community. I live in a very small town, and the town is dependent on logging, fishing, mining, and aquaculture is a big part of that. And what we were finding is that we're seeing a lot of activism, and we're seeing a lot of kind of negative press, and we provide technology that allows our customers to continue to make food, to develop food within Canada and stay within our coastal communities, and to do so by limiting the impact on the environment. So that's a big part of what brings me to work every day and why I'm really proud about what we do. And we'll continue to talk about that, I guess. Yeah.
Happy International Women's Day, everyone. Delighted to be here, honored to be participating in this panel. I'm Giovanna Mingarelli. I am the CEO and co-founder of a group of companies, MNC Consulting, MC2 and MC3 US, all of which focus on building proprietary AI-powered technologies that track, measure, and reward the ESG impacts that companies, governments, and organizations are having on their various stakeholders. And through the consulting company, we help tell the story of how that's true. I have also various additional roles to that. For the last decade, I've been the Canadian Chair of Global Dignity, which is a non-religious, non-political, non-profit organization empowering 8 million young people in 80 countries with dignity. It was co-founded by the Crown Prince of Norway and is supported by all of Canada's political parties. I'm also the past chair globally for the organization. I'm also on the Invest Ottawa Women's Subcommittee for women owners, and have been involved on the Government of Canada's Treasury Board Secretariat, Talent Cloud Advisory Board. So basically, this was the group for the last 3 years that were creating the future of work for the public service, which has now gone out of pilot mode into the actual deployment and programming within the public service for the new way that the government hires, because the pilot was so successful. And so I work across both private sector through my businesses, nonprofit sector, and then also within government. Really excited for this conversation.
So you can see we have an incredibly accomplished panel today. They also hail from not only different backgrounds, different technology sectors and spheres of business, but also different geographic regions. We have Ottawa, Toronto, Seattle, and Campbell River, BC, which is where Heather is joining us from. So it's incredible. I feel that we're going to have national perspective as part of this discussion. And you all know that I love to hear stories, and I think stories that speak to the heart and mind are truly inspirational. I would love to hear from each of you as leaders who are truly creating a future worth building and doing things in very novel and different ways. Can you describe one of the most memorable or defining moments in your leadership journey?
Yeah, I think our collective journey is a grouping of very small events that seemingly seem disconnected but then lead up to a big moment. And part of that journey actually started with my relationship with Area EXO and Invest Ottawa, actually. So I still remember sort of being asked to deliver the telecommunications backbone network or lead the architecting of that for deriving the private test track. Just combining my passion for technology and for creating that environment, and being super passionate about autonomous vehicles. Being a person that doesn't drive, I was still very passionate about AV technology, and then wanting to see that come into place in the local ecosystem that I was part of. And then just the roles that different parts of the consortium played to bring that together. I think that was just amazing to see that in action and be launched in the way that it was. And then just now, personally, one of the most memorable moments for me came last year when I was picked to be one of the top 5 up-and-coming leaders in tech in Ottawa. And that was just, seemingly small moments that come together for a big prize at the end, so to speak.
I think for me, a similar idea of how you don't realize the path that you're on will set you in a direction you never thought possible. And for me personally, it was, I was studying at the University of Ottawa. I was doing a bachelor in accounting, and I had that path that I thought that I wanted for myself, working into that field and all of that. And I realized there was something that I was missing, or there wasn't that purpose-driven portion of what I was looking for in my career that was going to give me necessarily at the time, and had led me down this path of learning about social entrepreneurship and using the triple bottom line for your focus as you're building a business. And that kind of spearheaded this journey into growing in hydroponics, which is how we, our main technology, growing food without soil, and all the things that were possible in terms of making an impact with social entrepreneurship at its core. And so looking back, it was seemingly insignificant moments that led us to where we are today. And our network of farms are growing more than 4 million servings of veggies every year. Each community creates at least 1 job, so there's at least 40 or so jobs created. So it's just, and then they have all of these amazing stories that they have in how they're serving their communities. And so that's really inspiring and gets us going every day to do the work that we do.
Their innovation is unbelievable. They have been with us at Invest Ottawa, and I can tell you they grow that produce in temperatures as low as minus 59 degrees Celsius. So it is unbelievable. These hydroponic shipping containers contain life-giving technology. Thank you so much. Em, I know you've got great stories.
I do. I'm going to try and narrow it down. I think I am living proof that if you just take a chance, sometimes things work out in ways you just never absolutely imagined. A few years ago, I was working in banking. I'd been working in banking for 15 years and had a lot of success, but I was kind of bored. You do the same thing over and over again, and you're looking for something different to do. And I said to my friend, I'm looking into fintech, and she said, what about blockchain? What about Bitcoin? I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And to put into context, back then, Bitcoin was $400. So you understand, like, nobody knew what it was. But she said, come to this conference that I'm having. I went to the conference, it was fantastic. And that moment was very pivotal. It changed my life. I'm like, something? I'm gonna leave banking. I'm gonna dive into this full time. Nobody in my family was an entrepreneur. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was literally building the car while driving it. And it was very, very impactful. I can't begin to tell you how my life has changed since that. I thought, I won't make as much money as I did in banking, but at least I'll be really happy with all these really smart people. And then things just absolutely changed around. Since then, I was invited to, are you okay? Okay. Since then, I was invited to Davos. I've been invited for every year for the past 5 years. I was invited to work with the United Nations. I was able to chair one of their initiatives. I was invited to help alongside World Economic Forum. I was invited to speak on Richard Branson's island. I met Richard Branson. If you see these people on TV, you think, who the what? And we're really working to make things better, to do really good things that are really good for the environment. One of the things I'm really proud of is the fact that we are building a data center where what we're doing is we're using flared gas. So the gas that goes into the atmosphere. Have you guys seen the movies where you see like the oil fields and you see that gas that goes into the atmosphere? We're harnessing that. We're using that for energy. And so we're taking it out of the atmosphere and we're trying to make the world a better place. And this is an initiative that's going to be led by 2 Black women. And it's like we're doing 50, thank you. Woo! Thank you. And it is jaw-dropping. And I feel blessed every single day. I'm not happy all day, every day, but I'm happy for at least a good portion of it.
Got quite a variety of stories. But I think for me, the most pivotal moment of the journey so far, we had a company and we were doing, again, mostly kind of consulting and project management, nothing crazy, but we kept coming across this massive inefficiency. It didn't matter what my engineers were doing, the problem started before we got involved. So we produce, we work with a lot of compressed air systems on the farms. And no matter what we did, we couldn't fix the problem because it didn't start with us. And so we approached our partners who made that machine and we said, you really need to fix this. There's a big market, there's a lot of salmon farming taking place around the world. All of these farms are off-grid, so everything that they produce on site, all the energy that they need needs to be produced on site, and it's wildly inefficient. We got to do something about this. And they said, no, sorry, we have other priorities. And so that was the conversation that has absolutely changed our lives, and as a leader within that company, because it was choosing to accept no or pushing forward to doing it ourselves. And in doing it ourselves, it meant that I no longer was owner, operator, didn't really have to answer to anyone except maybe the nanny at the end of the day who's helping me with my kids at home, kind of thing, make sure I'm home for them. We had to go out and raise capital, and we did, which after hearing the statistics I'm kind of proud of myself that happened.
You should be.
Seriously, that does deserve a round of applause.
Yeah. But that has dramatically changed how we approach all problems on a go-forward basis now too, because it wasn't just that one technology. We've brought on 4 additional technologies in the last couple of years, all from that same sentiment of we identify a problem, we try to work to find a solution. We don't necessarily need to be recreating the wheel each time. But oftentimes we're coming across no, and so you just got to bring yourself to yes if you feel passionately about it.
I guess my most recent significant milestone would have been all of last year. So in the midst of, the recession and the world being as it is, post-COVID, I did a world tour fundraising for my various companies and organizations. And over the course of the tour, I visited, the entire west coast of the United States and Canada, from Victoria, Vancouver to Seattle, and then all across to Los Angeles, Silicon Valley, and the surrounding regions. Then took it across to Europe, to Portugal, London, etc. And then, etc. means nothing to any of you, but there were many countries in Europe. And then over to Mongolia, Pakistan, India, Nepal, Saudi Arabia. And over the course of this trip, where we visited 20 cities in 15 countries, there was one common theme. And that theme I spoke about, I wrote about. I'm writing a book right now for Forbes called Operation Good Fortune, about my entrepreneurial journey over the last 10 years. So this entire fundraising experience all around the world will be documented in this book, in addition to just my life and my entrepreneurial journey, which started at Invest Ottawa. We were, so MC2, my technology company, my first one, incubated with Invest Ottawa when it was just coming out of Oakry. So we were literally like one of the first companies in there, which is exciting. But anyway, so that's also part of the book. The common theme, however, across all these countries and all the places that I went and all the events that I spoke at and the press conferences and media that I gave was around the common theme of kindness. And that is, for me, when we talk about ESG, equity, diversity, and inclusion, right? Like, kindness is at the heart of the basic fabric that allows us to have conversations about the importance of ESG in a way that people will listen and be receptive, right? Like, on a very basic human level, kindness is about trust, and trust allows for mobility, right? Upward mobility. If there's no trust, people don't listen, they block you out, and stuff doesn't move. And so I really want to, for me, share that, because that's also at the heart and the center of my work. And I'll talk a bit more later about, some of the actual campaigns and technologies that we've been developing around kindness. But what's fascinating and important is that in this world tour, where in many of the places I went, I gave interviews, like in Mongolia, I gave a press conference and it was dubbed. I was dubbed in Mongolian. I don't even know what I said anymore. Like, if you research it, like, all of the articles are in Mongolian. And it was all about kindness, and the same messages were consistent and well received all around the world. And so, anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm excited to talk more about this over the course of the panel.
Imagine what our world would be if it was founded on kindness, and if we had more women leaders in the decision-making rooms and making decisions and helping to transfer wealth into the right hands so that we can have the type of world that we want to create together with all of you. And I think it was Susan who said, what gets measured gets done, and that is very true. And you are all leading businesses, you're driving businesses, whether they're large multinationals like Ericsson or startups that are doing incredible things and scaling. How do you make decisions, and how do you measure your impact when you think about the incredible vision you have each set and you're translating that into action every day through products, through your business? How do you make decisions and measure that impact? And it gets awfully boring, doesn't it, when I just go up and down the row? So I'm going to open this up to anyone on the panel to jump in.
I think one thing that we had the privilege to do over the past couple of years is to grow the team. And part of growing the team is, a big part of it is talent acquisition and hiring. And a big part of building a gender-balanced team is to ensure that you have that diversity within the team, you have that diversity in your hiring panel, in your interviewing groups, So how do we make decisions? Well, we make it collectively. So one thing that at least I focused quite a bit on while creating that team, and I hope it's something that you can take away as well, is look for people that believe in community when you hire into your teams, because it's so important to have community builders and community makers as part of your team, because they're what sustains your team during hard times, during good times. So I think, yeah, that would be my sort of word of advice.
I'm just going to build on what you shared. So once you've hired, right, in a diverse and we hope inclusive way, one of the qualities that I value a lot is transparent communication. And so I find when I just speak very clearly and openly with the team and encourage that within our leadership, that enables trust. And it enables people to feel like they're included and that they belong, and it reduces fear, right? Because often we're, in my experience, where there's conflict or uncertainty, right, that often comes from fear, right? So someone feels potentially excluded or not included, right? And so just clear, transparent communication, super important. The other thing, very practically, that we implemented with all the companies last summer is a new code of conduct. And it's a special code of conduct for all the companies, for anyone, so from contractors to investors to vendors, et cetera. And the code of conduct is designed to allow people to understand what a win-win-win situation looks like all the time. So it's actually designed to create a culture of kindness. It's not intended to create a culture of surveillance, right? Because surveillance actually creates more fear. And that can actually be really creepy and undesirable, right? In any level of company. We don't want that, right? So we want people to actually feel empowered to, understand that at all levels of leadership in these companies, right, that kindness is being implemented, and we actually have like bullets on this is what it means, right, to have an issue and bring it to leadership in a kind way, because a lot of people just don't know what that means, right? And so it's about basic education. And so again, that's something that everyone now reads and signs off on before they start with us. And the goal is just to create a much more healthy, friendly, and ultimately productive business, right? Triple bottom line starts with trust and inclusion. So I'll leave it at that.
So I'm just going to ask a quick question here. How many people, I'm just trying to get a read of the room, how many people work for a corporation, and how many people, okay, and how many people are entrepreneurs here? Okay, I just want to understand a little bit. So one of the things that my company does is we try to make sure that we hire a diverse group. I don't want people who look exactly like me, because then I'm only getting one read of the room. So I try to hire different people, and that is absolutely amazing. And I gave a little discussion about that a couple weeks ago, saying that, if, and I'll use the Kim Kardashian example. Everybody here knows Skims, or if you don't, congratulations. When she first came out with kimono, there's a huge outcry from the Asian population, and if she'd had a diverse group of people that she could have leaned on, that wouldn't have happened. So when you see little things, and there are more examples of that. What I also realized, and this one's a little bit interesting, and not everyone can do this. I have this really good friend, and she is also CEO, but her corporation is public. And I met her team, and they were absolutely fantastic. And she said, I'm going to paraphrase, we don't hire jerks. We don't work with jerks. And I was like, oh my gosh, I like this. This is fantastic. We had such a good time. And I went back and I implemented that rule. My company, we do not hire jerks. Our clients are not jerks. And I did that, and guess what? Sales went up, employee morale went up. When I tell you that sales went up, our clients were so happy, they kept giving us more money. I kept giving the team more money. The team actually said to me, Emma, we're good. We don't need any more, you're doing well. who's ever said no to money, right? Some of my team did. So if you can, have a no jerk rule. Your team, your company, you overall will be happier for that. You'll be less anxious, and something I think you guys should think about.
I love inspiration and actionable insight, and you are getting it on the stage. These are strategies that you can employ no matter what team, no matter what organization you are in. Any other recommendations?
We have a no brilliant asshole policy, so it's so it's the same thing. Yeah, being in a smaller community, it is quite a challenge to hire appropriate staff and to bring in those technical for those technical roles. So there's a little bit of beggars can't be choosers, that we kind of have to just filter what we can bring in, but we do start very much with. Our entire HR process is focused on screening for values, screening for collaboration, for creativity and accountability. And those are our three major core values. And if you don't have those, the door is closed for you here, because we have had the experience and the unfortunate realities of when you have a startup and you're growing the business naturally, you're kind of willing to pile everyone on the bus. You always think everyone has great intentions, so you're piling them on the bus, and then later on you find that your values are not aligned. And that is a horribly painful process to discover that we've made that type of mistake, and it was something that we maybe could have screened for up front. So we have that same policy, different name, and we really have focused in on hiring for values. We've grown our team we were 18 at the end of December last year, and we're about 50 now, so we've hired a lot, and this has been a core practice for us in doing so.
Values-based decision-making is something we see extensively at Invest Ottawa with the women founders we're privileged to collaborate with. It takes a lot of courage to make decisions based on values sometimes, and there are trade-offs often. For example, Joanna Griffiths was on our stage just 2 days ago here live. She's the founder and CEO of Nix, largest exit by a Canadian woman founder in our history at about $450 million US. She is one of the kindest, most wonderful, down-to-earth people I have ever met, and she sat on our stage and she said, I pulled our product, our very, very top-selling product, from 7,000 retail outlets because they didn't subscribe to our values, and we started over. She pulled all of that revenue and plunged and built back up based on the values that she set. I see those same commitments to values with the leaders sitting beside me and so many others, and that's one of the things that I think really differentiates women founders. Lita, I want to give you a chance to weigh in as well. How do you make decisions? How do you evaluate your impact?
Yeah, no, I 100% echo the values discussion, because for us that has been at the core, our values and our purpose. And I think when we're able to align those, a lot of the other facets like skill development and coaching, those things can come a little bit easier, because at the core you're really working with like-minded folks that are ultimately aligned with what you're working towards. The only other piece I think for us has been trying to ensure that there is equal representation in our leadership team, and I think that has really helped trickle down to the teams or all of the teams in our company, and making sure that there is that balance of opinions and perspective, I think, is a big one. And I think that it's almost a quiet facet, but such an important one when we look back, even 12 months, how much of a difference that's made to have that perspective at the leadership table.
Diverse perspectives, more competitive, more profitable, definitely drive a better bottom line, also the right thing to do. One of the topics that we discussed leading up to today is lessons learned. I'm an absolute fan of being able to be very open and transparent about struggles, about challenges, the failures that we perceive that we have that often are some of the greatest gifts and opportunities and lessons learned. And if we share those with others, then we can benefit, and we all realize we can always pick ourselves back up and continue charging forward on that goal. I would love to hear from some of you about some of the biggest challenges, stumbles that you've made,
and how you came to continue pushing forward towards your goals.
Okay, all right. Being a little honest here. I grew up in Ottawa, came from Jamaica, and I have a drive to excel, to succeed, and it's worked pretty well for me. And when I first got into crypto, I was like, at least I'll be happy, and I wasn't chasing the money anymore. And it took me a few years to realize, and then the money started coming because the price of Bitcoin went up, and people no longer thought that we were crazy. People no longer laughed at us and were like, we want to hear what you have to say. And then suddenly the need to make money kind of crept back in, and I wasn't enjoying it as much. And then we had a crash in 2018. So what you guys are going through here, we've had it before. It happens, it's a cyclical thing. And suddenly all the friends you had, they kind of left. You only have the friends when you're really doing well, and then you know how it is. They're fair weather friends, there's a reason for that saying. And then we had to kind of get back to basics, and then we weren't chasing the money anymore. We were back to what we really liked about crypto. We were back to the community and things like that, and then the money started coming again. And what I have learned, and this is the most important thing, I know this is really hard, especially if you're coming to a country and you really want to make an impact, but don't chase the money, chase happiness. When you chase happiness, the money then just comes naturally. And I will tell you this, it's true. In the midst of the pandemic, when all hell was breaking loose, and I remember I lost $100,000 in 1 month, and I had to pick myself up off my condo floor and go, okay, how are we going to do this? I have people with mortgages and things like that. And I totally retooled my company, and we did, it took 4 or 5 months to figure things out. We then had our best year ever in the middle of the pandemic. And then I started an offshoot, and that had its best year ever. So, and at that point, I was just doing what I loved. It was really great. It was, my parents were kind of like, what? You're texting people who you've never met? I'm like, it's okay, it's fine. It's something new. And, we had a really great, it was really, the team was energized. They kind of followed me down the rabbit hole. And so all I can really tell you guys is, if you have an idea, go with it. Don't chase the money, chase happiness, and things will work out for you.
Chase joy. Love it. Heather.
Yeah, I can share some things that I'm still learning. I won't say that I'm on the other side of it just yet, but still learning. So I grew up in a very large family. I've got 6 brothers and 2 sisters, and we were all into competitive sports, and it was, very high performance stuff. And so I spent my entire childhood skating before going to school, and then lunchtime I'd go to the rink again, and then school would end and I'd go back to the rink, and it was just a grind and work, but I was the only person that could do that work, right? No one else could do that for myself. And then throughout university, I had to put myself through university because no one else was going to do that for me. And then we started our company, and I still carry that mindset that no one else will do the work for me, right? No one else is going to load the dishwasher. No one else is going to make sure the laundry, the kids have clean clothes. No one else is going to make sure that payroll happens, et cetera, et cetera. No one else is going to do the work. And you have to break through that. It is a very challenging thing to get to the other side on, and again, that's why I say I'm not there. But in 2022, so like last year, I finally started to kind of hand over the reins to other people in the company. And we had our biggest year yet. We grew an office in Chile. We've got more contracts down in Chile than we do in Canada now. Our production facilities are ahead of schedule. We're growing the team and we're really scaling, and a lot of it had to do with me starting to release control, something that I was so scared of giving up. And it was, I was just kind of constraining the business by controlling everything. And so letting other people do the work, letting other people carry the load, you can get so much more done.
incredibly critical success to scale. Giovanna, lessons learned.
So I'm actually going to build on both of your comments. Chasing joy, I love that. In fact, the North American indigenous totem for joy is the hummingbird. And up until last fall, my husband and I were living in Seattle, and we used to have these hummingbirds that would come and like fly, around our bushes in the backyard. We even put up a little hummingbird feeder because I was like, I want to attract the hummingbirds because they would make me happy. And on days when, things were difficult, during the pandemic, it was almost always difficult for business. The hummingbirds would bring me joy and remind me to focus on that, which is super important. And, I was just laughing the other day with a colleague about how, despite all of the ups and downs during COVID, we've still experienced so many successes. And when we experience success, it's because of the whole team, right? Like, it's the whole team all together. You cannot do it alone. It's impossible to do it alone. But as a business owner, when something goes wrong, whoever's fault it is, it's always my fault, right? Like, that's how it is, right? So success, yay, we're all successful. It's everybody. We did it all together. Something went bad. Anything went bad, it's my fault, right? Like, and that's it. And so it's this crazy thing where when you're wearing the hat of, oh my gosh, this thing is happening and I just have to deal with it and assume all the responsibility of, maybe it was just me and that's happened, or someone else did something and now I'm assuming responsibility. In either case, it's just, staying focused, being consistent, again, and I really do believe, as much as possible being sensitive and thoughtful and kind, right? And dealing with things, authoritatively and in the way that they have to be dealt with the right level of necessary implications, but, at all times remaining positive, because the flip side is becoming depressed, going into founder's depression, which is a real thing that people have to be very careful of. Where you go through cyclical, very difficult phases that feel like they never stop, and that can be very dangerous for people, right? And I've totally gone through that too over the last decade of being in business. And so staying positive is a necessity and a practicality. It's not naive. It's a very focused and chosen course of action when faced with very difficult situations and circumstances. And, and in my own experience, when I deal with things that way, it allows my team to feel like they can too, right? And it gives people the signals that, okay, that's how we do things here, right? And allows for others to perhaps, be more encouraged when faced with adversity. And I say this coming out of COVID, right? Where at the beginning of COVID, I had been to Davos, the World Economic Forum's annual meeting. I had very fortunately had the opportunity to go host an event, launch a new product, and we had, a series of very large contracts lined up, and when COVID hit, they all froze. And I was sitting there being like, oh my gosh, what do we do? It was terrifying. And so I say all of this after going through what all of us went through, right, in COVID. So be persistent, be smart, use your heart, and, do your best.
Yeah, I think for us, what has been one of the greatest challenges is with the triple bottom line approach. You're like, yeah, I want to have all this impact in the social and environmental. We won't worry about the profit part because we really care about the purpose that we do. But it's almost like that work-life balance triangle that you've maybe seen of they all it ebbs and flows and it's never static. And one of the biggest challenges we had was just recently with the kind of recessionary pieces hit us late last year, and the assumptions and the things that we could rely on completely changed. And what we were able to do kind of quote unquote for free, or part of our value that we wanted to bring to the communities and the people and our clients that we work with, just wasn't sustainable anymore. We had folks couldn't pay us, our accounts payable started racking up, and we were like, this is, we can't feasibly go on this way. We have to change some things. And part of that had to be changing our pricing and how we charged for our time and our work. And it was tough. It was tough to ask for money almost, in terms of how you structured your contracts and the way that you moved along with things. But what we recently found, and once those things came into effect, is that it became really normal. Everyone's like, yeah, that's fine. Why didn't you ask for this before? And we're like, oh, okay, sure. But it was a mind shift, and also that shift of knowing that the impact or the focus that you need to have on the triple bottom line sometimes has to shift. Sometimes you have to focus on profit. Sometimes you can focus on the social and then the environmental. But it really is that ebb and flow, and is never constant. So always having to stay on that has been a challenge, but we're working through it.
Agility and courage that drives action. It's incredible. I know that we are the only thing standing between you and lunch, so we are going to ask one last question. The theme for this International Women's Day is Embrace Equity. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have, we know that. And that the campaign is really driven around action this year. Why equal opportunities aren't simply enough because people start from different places. So true inclusion and belonging requires that action to create equity. An equitable world is a greater future, is a better future for all of us. I would love to hear one recommendation or key takeaway on how you are doing that, how you are embracing equity in your companies and your leadership roles, and one recommendation that this audience could take away and implement in their sphere of influence. I'm going to start with Dimple.
Yes, I think one recommendation is, one thing that I can say for sure is listen. Actively listen to the people that you're trying to build an equitable outcome for, an equitable environment for. Take it upon yourself to actually question your own bias and maybe ask what is required, and then see how you can come together to do it and build and creatively think of how to solve the issue. And equitability is also for yourself, like what makes you thrive in the environments that you're in. So fight for your own rights as well. Live intentionally, and I always say it's all about community. So seek community, and if you can't find community, build community and sustain that. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, for us, we work with a lot of Indigenous communities, and not being Indigenous myself, reconciliation is a very important topic for us in our organization, and making sure we have a meaningful and constant eye to that. And so we've had a really deep focus on our call to action, specifically focused on 92, and furthering the education and our different pillars in our organization. So keeping focus on that has been really important for us, and one of our main focuses this year. And we hope to continue to further that. If in terms of we step back for a recommendation, I think for me one of the biggest ones that I've seen, if we look at in our workplace, has been to make sure you consider the value that you bring to an organization, even if you don't see the same type of skills or intent or behavior, it's no less valuable. I always thought, because I was such a shy, kind of more introverted person, I was like, oh, well, no one is doing the things the way I do it. But that also is a superpower in itself, in that you're bringing such a unique skill set. So never think that just because yours might not be as visible or as loud as others, that it's no less important. And so to bring that and your full self to work every day.
Awesome. That does deserve applause.
We've touched on this before. I really do try to hire a diverse group of people. It's good for your bottom line, it's good for morale, and it's really good just for your company overall, because people give you different viewpoints. I try to hire people who are smarter than me, I hire people who are very, very smart, and then I get out of their way and let them do the job I hired them for. I am here if they have any questions, but really, everyone's an adult. So what I would tell you is treat your employees like the adults that they are and let them do the job that you've hired them to do. That's it.
Awesome. Heather.
Again, I've got a couple different ways to answer this question, but I want to highlight that it's very challenging to be creating new technology in a very small town. I grew up out in the outskirts of Toronto, and I lived in Vancouver, and so I was part of ecosystems in both of those areas. And then living in Campbell River, where there's 30,000 people and you're surrounded by water and mountains. The people that we have in our community are very outdoorsy focused and that kind of thing, and they're not always coming to Campbell River because it's the height of technology. And so for me, we were actually provided an opportunity to potentially move our facilities out of Campbell River. And our customers are there, so it's a challenge that way. We want to stay close to our customers. But we've engaged with our local First Nations, and we're setting up programs right now about allowing their people to come back to Campbell River to do technical co-ops and leadership programs with us, which is a step in the right direction for sure. And really just providing an opportunity for heavy manufacturing and technical jobs to remain in our community is a big one. I had another thing that I was going to think about here, but
amazing.
It's lost my mind already. So
Build community, find community, collaborate. Amazing.
I'll close on two very simple concepts. One is hire equitably, right? Do your best to hire equitably and responsibly. And once you've hired those people, and throughout the whole process, be kind. When you're being kind, you help people feel like they belong and like they're included. It's really simple and uncomplicated. And when we do that, it's so much easier to, scale and magnify your EDI efforts and to make a lot of amazing stuff happen. As I do conclude, one way that we're doing this across our companies and with my nonprofit organization, Global Dignity, is we launched a globally crowdsourced kindness campaign at the beginning of COVID, designed to empower young people to be kind to themselves, to one another, and to the planet. The campaign is called Unite Kindness. It was featured during National Kindness Week a couple of weeks ago. I co-chaired the National Kindness Week press conference with the public office holders who brought it into, basically brought the legislation into effect. And Unite Kindness so far has crowdsourced over 3.5 million acts of kindness around the world. Our goal is to get to 1 billion acts of kindness over 3 years. Everyone's invited to participate. It's free. You can take action online. Just use the hashtag Unite Kindness. Thank you, everyone, so much. Thank you to my fellow panelists and Sonia.
Creating a future worth building. The leaders on this stage are taking action every single day in every single way. We invite you to take the inspiration and actionable insight they've shared, bring that back to your homes, to your businesses, to your circles. That critical mass action is what will drive change and create the future that we all want to build. Thank you so much to all of my panelists, to Solange for giving us this opportunity. Wishing you all a wonderful International Women's Day and week. And if you are an entrepreneur, please come to Invest Ottawa. We want to help you grow and thrive. Thank you.